Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we've got a really unique mission for our deep dive. We're looking at this incredible excerpt from a memoir. It's titled Moonies, Mayhem, and Pub Redemption.
It's a fantastic title.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we're not just, retelling a story here. We're trying to pull out these really powerful lessons about human nature itself hidden in one chaotic night.
Right, and it's such a specific window into a time and place. The sources drop us right into 1970s London.
Yeah.
It's tumultuous. It's fascinating.
And the person at the center of this is involved with the Unification Church. Most people back then would have known them as the Moonies.
Exactly.
And the sources are really clear from the get-go. Life in that group it was about total commitment.
All-consuming.
All-consuming is the perfect word. And
Okay.
for them, that dedication translated into nonstop fundraising. This wasn't a side gig.
No, not at all. It was their entire mission, and it all came down to this. Well, this truly bizarre fundraising strategy the narrator calls the pub run.
Okay, you have to break that down.
Yeah.
The pub run.
You have to picture it. It was this highly disciplined operation. They'd load up a van, usually with really low-cost stuff. In this case, it was mostly potted plants.
Potted plants.
Little potted plants, yeah. And they would just systematically go from pub to pub all across London. It was grind, a total race against the clock.
Why plants? That seems so random. The sources say they weren't, high-value items.
And that's sort of the genius of it,
Yeah.
and the tragedy in a way. The stuff had to be cheap, right? Easy to replace if it got broken or stolen.
Sure.
It had to be easy to carry on a tray through a packed, noisy pub, and it had to be non-threatening.
So you're selling these tiny bits of life, of greenery in this place. It's just
Exactly. Thick with stale beer and smoke. It was
Yeah.
a kind of strange, low-stakes street theater. Part commerce, part sheer hustle.
And the sources say that most of the time it was fine. The interactions were, pretty benign, right?
Yeah, totally. People were curious. They'd make a few jokes. Maybe you'd get a flat-out rejection.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, it was just simple camaraderie. They were just this weird fixture of the London pub scene.
Another part of the city's background noise.
They were part of the scenery, this kind of naive, persistent hustle that Londoners were, pretty used to seeing.
Okay, so if that was the baseline, that kind of low-level acceptance, what made this one night near Wembley so different?
Yeah.
Because we're diving into a moment where that whole routine it completely dissolves. It goes from hustle to absolute terror.
This incident is where that social contract, that tolerance, gets tested to its absolute limit.
So let's go there. Let's step into that pub. It's near Wembley Stadium. It's football season.
Right.
You can just imagine the atmosphere.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pressure cooker.
Right.
Post-match crowd, the energy is volatile, the air is thick, smoke, spilled beer.
And the vendor walks in. The sources have these great sensory details. They step out of the quiet street and into this wall of sound, this loud, boisterous, very masculine energy.
Yeah, and it's immediately clear this place is different from the other pubs they've hit that night. It's primed for trouble.
They're trying to make their way through this dense crowd, heading for the bar, and then it happens.
And it is not an accident.
No, the source is explicit. This was deliberate, malicious.
That's the point of no return. A drunken youth, the narrator, calls him an absolute lout. He sees them coming.
And what? He just
decides to stretch his leg out at the last second, hooks their ankle, sends them flying. It was an act of pure, deliberate cruelty just for the show.
The impact must have been just awful, going down hard on that sticky, beer-soaked floor.
And the destruction was instantaneous. The entire tray, all that inventory, those fragile little plants,
Just gone.
gone. Soil everywhere, shattered bits of ceramic pots, uprooted green things just scattered all over the floor. It made a huge, crashing racket.
And that sound, it didn't trigger sympathy.
Not even a little bit. It triggered the mob. Laughter just erupts. Loud, cruel laughter. And then maybe half a dozen of his mates, these hooligans, they jump up.
Not to help.
No. They start playing football with the debris, kicking the broken pots around, cheering as the ceramic crunches under their boots. Just total mockery and destruction.
And that's the moment it shifts. It's not a bad sales call anymore. It's pure terror.
Yes.
The narrator's lying there, completely helpless, surrounded by this mess and this awful laughter. The source says the first thought wasn't even about the lost money.
No, it's about survival.
It's about the potential for physical violence, feeling completely alone, surrounded with zero control, just watching your work get demolished for fun.
And that feeling of helplessness is so key to what happens next. The noise is deafening. The mockery is it's so sharp. And the worst feeling, the source says, was realizing the whole pub was in on it.
Either by kicking the pots or...
Or just by watching. By enjoying this show, it was a collective decision to humiliate this person.
So they're just getting ready to crawl out of there, just take the loss and escape.
Accept the fear, accept the humiliation, and just get out. But this is where this is where we have to slow down. Because the moment that follows just turns everything on its head.
Right when the chaos is at its absolute peak.
When they feel the most alone, something incredible happens.
Something, yeah, almost miraculous. A new voice cuts through all that noise. And it's not a bouncer. It's not the bartender.
Not the vendor. It's a girl who no one had even noticed before, just sitting at the bar. She stands up. She's not physically intimidating. She's not some authority figure.
And she just confronts them.
Directly. Confronts the very center of that mob.
And her words. The power in them is just amazing. It's peer-to-peer shaming. She just yells, "You should be ashamed of yourselves."
And then the killer line.
"What are you, 10 years old? Grow up."
And that is just, it's psychologically fascinating. Why did that work? I mean, think about it. If a big bouncer had come over, it probably would have started a fight.
Oh, for sure. It would have escalated.
Right. But a young woman, a peer, not using force, but just scorn, challenging their masculinity, calling them children, that hit them harder than any punch could have.
It completely shattered that mob anonymity.
Instantly.
The laughter just died. It stopped immediately.
Yes.
Suddenly, they weren't this anonymous pack of hooligans. They were individual guys being publicly called out as childish bullies.
They realized they'd crossed a line. The sources, you could just see it on their faces. They started to look genuinely uncomfortable, one by one.
That collective high, that enjoyment of the cruelty, it just vanished.
It was replaced by this ripple of shame. And it spread fast.
And that ripple becomes a tidal wave. I mean, the reversal is just massive. Within minutes, the whole atmosphere does a complete 180.
The very same guys who were kicking the ceramic shards around, they're now bending down, sheepishly, awkwardly.
Picking up the pieces.
Picking up the broken pots, trying to scoop up the soil, mumbling apologies.
But it goes beyond just remorse, right? It turns into this overcompensation.
A huge overcompensation. An incredible act of collective generosity. They're not just trying to salvage the one or two plants that weren't totally smashed.
No.
No, the guys who started it, and now others in the pub who feel guilty for just watching, they start pooling their money.
And they don't just cover the damages. They insist on buying everything.
Everything. The broken plants, the scattered soil, the ceramic shards. They effectively bought the entire wreck.
So they pool all this money, and it's not just what the inventory was worth.
No, it was far more than the vendor would have made on a good night. The terrifying hostility was just... It was completely replaced by this frantic rush of remorse and generosity.
The speed of that pendulum swing is just astounding. From a dangerous mob to a collection plate of conscience in, what, 5 minutes?
Less than 5 minutes.
So what's the takeaway here? The narrator walks out of there with a full till, which is, an incredible outcome. But the lesson is so much bigger than the money.
It's about the immense, transformative power of a single courageous voice.
Right.
If you look at it through a social psychology lens, it's a perfect example of how mob behavior works. It relies on everyone staying silent, on that collective complicity.
And when that silence is broken.
Especially when it's broken not by force, but by a clear moral challenge from a peer, the whole structure can just dissolve. The mob falls apart, and it's just a bunch of uncomfortable individuals again.
The narrator understood that. They knew if that girl hadn't spoken up, they would have left with nothing. Worse than nothing. They would have left with this deep fear that might have stopped them from ever doing a pub run again.
Instead, they left with proof. Proof that even in the most hostile, chaotic places, one person's simple decision to be decent can shame a whole crowd into finding their better angels.
It's a powerful argument against the bystander effect, isn't it?
A very powerful one. It suggests that deep down, people know what's right, but they often need a catalyst. They need someone to publicly state the obvious to break the spell. That girl wasn't powerful in a physical sense. She was just clear.
So we go from total humiliation to this profound moral and financial victory, all because one person had the guts to speak up.
Which I think leaves a really important question for you, for the listener. Yeah. When you think about this story, this sudden moral reversal, where one voice cut through all that noise, how often do we see similar dynamics, maybe smaller ones, in our own lives?
Sure.
You know, whether it's in an online comment section that's getting nasty, or a quiet workplace where something isn't right, or even just a social gathering. What situations out there right now might just be waiting for one clear, courageous voice to challenge that group complacency.
And when you think about that pub, it's almost always the silence of the many that allows the worst behavior of the few to flourish.
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the surprising power of courage and, I guess, of ceramics.